Australians don't trust politicians, and if it feels like every year your trust in politics reaches new lows, that's because, well, every year our trust in politics reaches new lows. Incidentally, one trust survey also found that the ABC is Australia's 6th most trusted brand, behind NRMA, Coles, Woolies, Aldi at number 2, and at the top, Bunnings. OK, well, I'm about to talk about integrity, and I really want you to trust me. So as I was saying, we don't trust our politicians, and it's no wonder, given they are able to screw up so badly all the time and almost never suffer any consequences.
Peter Dutton intervened in the deportation of 2 au pairs. Senate committee found he misled Parliament. Still Home Affairs Minister. Stuart Robert presided over the robo-debt debacle, costing $1 billion and counting. Somehow still Government Services Minister. And Angus Taylor used a fake document to attack Clover Moore, still unexplained, yet somehow he's still Energy Minister. Find a luckier bunch of politicians and we'll beat it by 10%.
If you think the Angus Taylor fake document scandal was a left-wing beat-up, here's how it was reported by renowned leftist Andrew Bolt.
Angus Taylor, to this day, the Minister has never told us just how he came to be relying on this fake document. It is the cover-up that gets you. And if you're too dumb to know that, maybe politics is not for you. What a goose.
That's a strong choice of birds. And I agree, although Bolt was wrong about one thing. It's not the cover-up that gets you. In Australian politics in 2020, nothing gets you. Most scandals just follow the same old trajectory. The opposition calls for a resignation.
Why is he still sitting there?
The Prime Minister decides there was no breach of some meaningless code of conduct.
I consider there is no action required by me under clauses 7 stop
Members
1
on my left.
and 7 stop 2.
And then the Minister stays out of the spotlight until the whole thing blows over.
These are questions for the Minister, but unfortunately he's repeatedly refused an interview.
Answer the question, Chair. Oh, and incidentally, if you like that chair...
Empty chairs, cushioned from responsibility, $40.
It didn't always used to be this way. Decades ago, some ministers often took responsibility for their mistakes and would fall on their sword over the slightest hint of misconduct. In 1970, future leader of the Liberal Party, Andrew Peacock, offered to resign as Minister of the Army simply because his wife appeared in an ad endorsing Sheridan printed sheets. Pretty extreme example of you made your bed, now lie in it. Then there was Hawke Minister Mick Young, who stood aside in 1984 after he smuggled a Paddington bear through customs in his suitcase without paying the import duty in what was delightfully named
The Paddington Bear Affair.
He should have told customs there was a bear in there. And back in the olden days, some ministers even used to think that the public were entitled to a detailed explanation of their mistakes, like Liberal Minister Michael McKellar, who stepped down in 1982 for the heinous crime of bringing a colour TV set into the country without declaring it. And when I say detailed explanation, I mean detailed.
And a customs officer said to me, "Is that a television set?" And I said, "Yeah." And he said, "It's not included on your form." And you know how you tick in those boxes, yes or no, where it should have said yes, it said no. I said, "I very much regret that." He said, "Is it a colour television?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Go over there through the baggage check." So I went over there. Anyhow, I went through to the next baggage, put the thing on the counter with all the other luggage. That fella started to go through my baggage, as one would expect. Somebody else whom I didn't know came up and said, "Good morning, Mr. McKellar. How are you?" And I said, "I'm tired."
We're all tired. But how good is it to be tired of a minister actually explaining themselves? Instead, we get this. Still won't talk, eh? We know that wherever there are people in power, there is corruption. It's an adage as old as time. That's why all states have their own corruption commissions, which have taken on pollies from both sides, like Eddie Obeid and currently Adam Somyurek. But at a federal level, there is nothing to hold politicians accountable except their own sense of shame. For 2 years, the government has dragged its feet, setting up a federal independent commission against corruption, or federal ICAC.
The only group of Australians less trusted than bankers are politicians.
Last year, a bill even passed the Senate. So what is the excuse for not voting on it in the lower house?
Obviously,
There have been other priorities for the government now because of the COVID pandemic.
You can pass anti-corruption laws in a pandemic. You don't have to kiss afterwards. Instead, the government wants a weaker body, which won't be able to hold public hearings or make public findings about politicians. If I'd wanted to endorse a slightly crappier version of the same basic product, I'd be wearing an Aldi uniform. And finally, there's the argument that you don't need a federal corruption watchdog because there's no direct evidence of corruption. Well, anyone who's been to Bunnings knows until you get there, you never know what you're going to find. So when it comes to political corruption, it's time we spoke to the experts.
Because lowest ministerial standards are just the beginning.